am Doug Heemstra, President of Inland, and I'd like to invite Alyssa Cohen, Director of the Hubbard School of Journalism at the University of Minnesota, to present the Ralph D. Casey Minnesota Award to someone known to all of us, not only to Inland, not only to SNPA, but throughout the industry. Alyssa?
The award is a large plaque, so I don't know if I can set it down for you all to see it. But hello and good morning. I'm Dr. Alicia Cohen. I'm the director of the recently named Hubbard School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of Minnesota. As director, I succeed Al Timms, and I'm pleased to be with you this morning to present Inland Press Association's 2017 Ralph D. Casey Minnesota Award, an award that has been given annually since 1948. The award is named in honor of the University of Minnesota School of Journalism School's first director, Ralph D. Casey, who believed that leaders in the journalism and media industry have an important responsibility to give their best to their community. Ralph was an innovator, a leader, and a risk taker, just like today's recipient. Today at the University of Minnesota, we do our best to fulfill Ralph's mission and to instill these same values in our students, while providing the tools for them to thrive in a rapidly changing media environment. As you know, the Ralph D. Casey Award is Inland Press Association's highest honor. It's also the highest honor given by the Hubbard School of Journalism and Mass Communication. This award goes to a publisher, editor, or senior newspaper staff member who has a distinguished record of service and leadership to the newspaper industry. And this year's recipient has quite the distinguished record. I'm honored to present the Casey Award to Doug Franklin, past Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of Cox Enterprises, a communications organization where Doug spent his 38-year career moving up the ranks. Nearly 40 years of industry service, and more importantly, a long track record of ethical decision-making, loyalty, and innovation. In describing Doug's record, let's first take a walk down memory lane. Doug started at Cox in 1977 while attending college, first working as a door-to-door circulation solicitor for Dayton's newspapers in Ohio. He moved throughout a number of roles in different Cox publications, including the Springfield News-Sun and the Longview, Texas News Journal. In the mid-1980s, he took on the role of business manager at the Dayton Daily News. Just 4 years later, he was promoted to Executive Vice President and General Manager of the paper. How did Doug rise so quickly? He provided leadership and vision in the newsrooms that could not be matched. Kevin Riley, former editor of the Dayton Daily News, back when Doug was publisher, told me the story of a time the paper found itself in the middle of a community uproar. The newspaper reported that a wife of a local congressman was awarded a six-figure marketing contract from a local economic development group without going through the bidding process. Unhappy with the coverage, the congressman attacked Doug publicly. Years later, Kevin still remembers this because, as he says, quote, "It was the first important test of our editor-to-publisher relationship, which is something that's crucial in today's newspaper business." Doug didn't cave to the pressure, thus earning the respect of his editor in the newsroom. They knew that he had their backs. Later, Kevin and others would find out that although Doug endured vicious criticism, he had indeed advised the board against engaging in this contract. But they found that out much, much later. This is what, indeed, good leaders in the newspaper business do. They lead by example, manage conflicts of interest, and are willing to support the good journalistic work that leads to strong communities, often with little or no recognition at all. It's no doubt that integrity is what made Doug a top choice for Chief Operating Officer, and then CEO and President of Cox Ohio Publishing, where he oversaw 1,100 employees at 4 daily newspapers. And we all know that it wasn't easy to run newspapers in the mid-aughts. It took creativity and tenacity of leaders for newsrooms and media companies across the country to stay alive during the recession. And unfortunately, many folded. But those under Doug's watch, they thrived. Doug could foresee the changes that needed to happen in the newsroom and online. He could see how news and marketing could not remain in silos. News companies had to get creative like never before to enhance demand for quality journalism. This is how, during his time with Cox Ohio Publishing, Doug became one of the first publishers to blend newspaper content and marketing with Cox's radio and TV businesses in Dayton. After his success in Ohio, Cox Enterprises moved Doug down to Florida, where one of its newspapers are struggling. And I know we're all thinking about Florida today. But in 2009, at the height of the recession, Doug served as the publisher of the Palm Beach Post. In a short amount of time, he set the paper on a new path. The Palm Beach Post was the first major newspaper to outsource production to its competitor. And in turn, it saved the company millions of dollars a year. The willingness to take risks like this makes Doug a mentor among colleagues. Bob Dickey, who served with Doug on the board of then Newspaper Association of America, talks about how much he learned from Doug. Bob says, "I learned a great deal from him and respect his willingness to take calculated risks if he thinks they will open opportunities and help drive forward a long-term vision." This skill to see the big picture, to innovate, lead teams to plan and think ahead, pushed Doug up the corporate ladder. From 2009 to 2013, Doug led Cox Media Group as an executive vice president and then president. In these roles, he oversaw the group's publishing, broadcasting, and digital media properties, including 8 dailies and more than a dozen non-dailies, 15 television stations, 86 radio stations, and more than 100 digital services, and the direct marketing company we all know as Valpak. Doug also brought his leadership to the boards of both the Inland Press Association and the now News Media Alliance. His friends and colleagues at both associations say how much they trust his opinions and they value his hard work. Past Inland President Terry Kroger says Doug was always willing to roll up his sleeves and do the hard work, even without any recognition. Terry says, quote, "He did it with his affable demeanor, which made him not only a trusted colleague, but a good friend, one who I call on regularly for counsel." Doug has served a number of other organizations over the years, including the Alliance of Women in Media, Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, National Association of Broadcasters, the United Way in Dayton, Ohio, and the Woodruff Arts Center in Atlanta, among others, I'm sure. Before retiring in 2015, Doug spent 2 years as the Executive Vice President and CFO at Cox Enterprises, closing out his 38-year career as a key member of the leadership team. It was, to put it mildly, a big job. When Cox announced his 2013 executive leadership transition, it noted he would be, quote, "responsible for the company's treasury, financial reporting and control, as well as tax and audit functions." He also had the responsibility for public policy, supply chain services, information technology, risk management, and legal. When he announced his retirement in 2015, he did so with grace and humility. The Palm Beach Post reported that Doug said, quote, "I've been fortunate to have had a fabulous run with a remarkable family company, and I'm proud to have played a small part in its history and future." There's no doubt in our minds at Minnesota that the continued success of the communications and media company with 60,000 employees and $20 billion in revenue is in part because of the risks, changes, and strides Doug made at each and every one of his positions. These same qualities are precisely why Doug was pulled out of retirement at the beginning of this year to become CEO of the Boston Globe. As seasoned leader, owner John Henry noted that the Boston Globe was looking for someone who was, quote, "fearless, energetic, articulate, and passionate," to provide leadership to follow up on, quote, "many tough decisions the Globe had made over the past few years." As a strategic change leader, Doug Franklin was well suited to the task. Bob Dickey refers to him as charismatic, a voice of reason, and someone who always stays open-minded to new ideas and approaches. With his strong business acumen and leadership skills, he is an outstanding consensus builder with the ability to unite people to work toward a common goal. As a terrific advocate for the industry, he has helped set trends that affect future success. And as you may know, Doug announced in late July that he was stepping down after differences with the Globe's owner. Though his tenure was short, it was incredibly high impact. He was a steadfast strategist for the news mission to grow its community subscribers. He approached his position with clarity, he says with honesty and optimism. And before his departure was announced, Doug wrote a letter to the Globe team, reminding them of their mission and how he took on the role because he loves the newspaper industry, cherishes our First Amendment freedoms and obligations, and values the role of the Globe in the Boston region. There is no doubt that Doug was a terrific advocate for the news business and its connection to the community during his tenure there too. Given Doug Franklin's deep experience in the media business, there are perhaps few other industry leaders with more experience navigating complex, adaptive, strategic changes needed to strengthen a newspaper or a media firm. As Michael Joseph, Executive Vice President of Cox Media Group, indicated in his letter of support, quote, "Few can balance disruption that comes with change, while keeping teams focused on day-to-day operations. Doug leads with focus on the big picture and how changes will impact his employees. Perhaps even most importantly," Michael writes, quote, "Doug is one of the most compassionate leaders I know." The leadership Doug showed throughout his career is needed in every media firm, in every individual newsroom, and throughout our industry. To once more quote his former colleague Kevin Riley, quote, "Doug has shown that good journalism leads to strong communities. He has insisted that people in our business inspire and improve the communities we serve. He has done the same for our industry. We couldn't ask for a better champion in journalism." Please join me in congratulating Doug Franklin on receiving the 2017 Ralph D. Casey
Thank you, Lisa, of a fine journalist. She obviously did her homework. This is quite an honor, and it's quite humbling. And I should say to Alicia, thank you for the recognition. I talked to her recently. Congratulations to you on the naming of the journalism school for the Hubbard family. I know the Hubbard family from the broadcast side. They are an awesome family and have a great reputation in the broadcast side, just like the Morris family does here in the newspaper business. And congratulations to Charles and also to Ted for their award, and Sharon for your journalism award and all your great work that you do. The list of the Casey Award recipients is quite impressive, and it's very humbling to me to be up here and be part of that group, and just very honored to be here. Thank you for the kind words I've got from everybody. That was very nice, and it's nice to think back and reminisce. Inland has been just a fabulous organization to me. I was at dinner with the board and past presidents last night. We were reminiscing about a lot of great stories. Many of them I can't tell here in public. But Inland was where I grew up, where I started, just like many of you all did, either in SNPA and Inland. Very kind and Ray Carlson and Blaze brought me into Inland when I was a young manager, and working my way up, got to be a network, got to learn a lot about the business. So the Inland and SNPA organizations are vital to the success of the newspaper industry and to your growth. I want to congratulate the leaders of Inland and SNPA that are stepping up in their ladders as part of their annual meeting. Those are important roles to do, and those are big commitments, and I know what it takes, and I appreciate the sacrifices that you make to lead the industry and the commitment here. Also want to just mention to Tom Schwab and to Edward Van Horn, thank you for your leadership and the work that you do, that you try to do to herd the cats like this. And I'm so pleased to see that Inland and SNPA are together. 10 years ago, we started to have these conversations, and we actually had a meeting in Chicago with John Sturm and Edward Van Horn and Ray Carlson, and I think it was Nancy Lane, kind of a twinkle in our eye about trying to start working on these things. And I think it's the right and necessary thing to do. You all have been able to come together, and I think have become a bigger thing than any of the other newspaper organizations in the country, and I think that bodes well for you all in the future. I was fortunate to be part of Cox for almost 40 years, and also a cup of coffee with the Boston Globe, which was actually a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and there's a lot of stories there. My family, my wife couldn't be here today. We live in Sarasota, Florida, and so I've been a little bit distracted the past couple of days, but everybody is safe. The family left the state. And fortunately, I think Florida was spared most of the brunt of all of that. I think we say our prayers for Naples and down in that area where I think it got a lot, but I think most of Florida is going to be okay over the long haul. But it reminds me about what's important, about people, about networking, about friends, about family, but also the work that we do and the storytelling and the journalism that we have. And that's the foundation of our business. And with some great trepidation, and probably trepidation from you all, let me just make a couple of comments about the industry and what you all have and what the opportunities lie ahead. First, you heard a lot, and I agree with a lot of what Jim said this morning and all. One, advertising is a necessary evil for us. We have to have that, but it does not. We do not control our destiny on that, and we're under the thumb of the big platforms, and I think we ought to be careful about relying on that. And that should be an important, necessary secondary revenue stream for us. Most importantly is our storytelling and journalism I talk about. I think over the past 10 to 15 years, we've rediscovered what the roots of our business are and what it is. And it's the journalism in this community. And it's the talent that's in the newsroom and how we can connect with people. And what's starting to happen is, you have to remember, 10 years ago, the iPad wasn't around. We didn't even have any vision of how we could get from print to wherever we're going. Now we have those. I think the next thing that's up there, and Jim talked about it, is now being able to take that storytelling and journalism and match it up with the data. I hope you all have data scientists or data analysts on your team. They ought to sit in the newsroom. They ought to sit next to the editor. They ought to have an equal voice with the editor. It's going to scare the crap out of the editor. But I will tell you that the editor will find out in a year his best ally and best friend is going to be that data analyst. Because that data analyst is going to prove to you that investigative journalism, community journalism, connecting with the community is where it is. And yes, you've got clickbait, you've got all these other things that are out there, but it works. I've seen the subscription models work, and I don't want to sit up here and tout just subscription model, micropayments, or whatever. But you take your content and you take your data and you start working on it. You do your A/B testing, you take 10% of your audience and work with it, see what works. And along this journey that you're going to have over the next decade, I'm confident you're going to find a payment method and be getting paid for your content the right way, and that you can be successful over the long haul. I hope that you all will spend a lot of time and find the young talent that you can bring into the industry and grow, that was afforded to many of you and to me to have such a great career in the newspaper industry, and that they can have a great career. Thank you again very much for your commitment to the industry, and I'm very honored to be up here with everybody. Thank you.